All right, let's go ahead and get started. This afternoon, I have the pleasure of demonstrating ApplicantStack onboarding to you. My name is Ellen Benzine. I'm an account manager with SwipeClock, and I support ApplicantStack Recruit and onboarding. With me this afternoon are Carol Kennedy and Brandon Peterson, both of whom support ApplicantStack as well. We're going to go ahead and get started. You should all be seeing my ApplicantStack Recruit homepage. And the reason why I'm starting with Recruit is ApplicantStack Recruit and ApplicantStack Onboarding are integrated products. So when a candidate in ApplicantStack Recruit is moved to the hired stage, that individual will automatically transition to ApplicantStack Onboarding if you have onboarding, of course. And by definition, onboarding is the electronic assignment of new hire paperwork. So new hire paperwork could include the I-9, it could include a state tax form, a federal tax form, and it can include forms unique to your organization. So as opposed to having an individual sit in your conference room or your office on day one of their employment, new hires can complete their paperwork from the luxury of their living room. All right. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to move from the homepage, my ApplicantStack Recruit homepage, to the Candidates tab. And the candidate that we'll be working with today is David Jones. So you'll see David is in the job offer stage, and I'm going to click on David Jones' candidate record. And green means move forward. So the next stage in my recruit workflow is the hired stage. And again, as mentioned, when a candidate is moved to the hired stage in Recruit, they will transition to onboarding. So this pop-up will show you a variety of things, one of which is the onboarding workflow that new hire will go through, as well as who the onboard manager is. So from here, I am going to transition to onboarding, and I do that by clicking on the 3x3 square in the upper right-hand corner of my screen, and from the drop-down, I'm going to choose onboarding. You now see my onboarding homepage. Obviously, the user interface is very similar to that of Recruit. You'll see the announcement panel in the upper left-hand corner. Any emails that have come to you from your hires will be in the activity summary, and then any tasks that have been assigned to you during the onboarding process would show in the upper right-hand corner under Task Summary. And then below, you see the pipeline summary of your hires now. In Recruit, you see the pipeline summary of your jobs, but again, in onboarding, it shows you the progress of your hires throughout the stages of your onboarding process. As mentioned, an individual who transitions to onboarding will fall into this new stage, and then you can modify the stages of your onboarding flow to mirror your particular onboarding processes. You can see I have 3 individuals in the new stage. I have 3 in paperwork. 1 has actually completed their onboarding process, and you simply move your new hires through the stages of your onboarding workflow as they progress. So I'm going to click on the Hires tab up top, and this will give me a high-level overview of the status of my hires. There's David Jones, who we just saw in Recruit, and who I had actually moved to onboarding a little bit before this webinar had started. David has 0 tasks assigned to him. Obviously, his completion rate is then a 0% completion rate. But then you can see the status of your other hires. Mitch Lyle has had 7 onboarding tasks assigned, of which he has completed 1. And you can look through the other hires. Again, a high-level overview of the number of tasks assigned, how many tasks have been completed, and what a rough percentage of completion is. I do have premium texting in my demo account, so therefore you will see the cell phone icons here. Those individuals who have cell phones, I have the ability to text them, obviously, not only in Recruit, but also in onboarding. And then you can also configure these hire fields to suit your particular requirements as well. So I have a hire field that I configured entitled Building Location, and then you'll see other information here, including the stage the new hire is in, as well as the new hires manager. We're going to drill down with David Jones a little bit. Let me go ahead and click on his new hire record. And as mentioned, ApplicantStack Recruit and Onboarding are integrated. So you'll see information that has been populated, auto-populated from ApplicantStack Recruit here in Onboarding. We know that David is in the new stage. We know that Carol Kennedy is his manager, and the job for which he has been hired is the accounting manager opportunity. As mentioned, you also have the ability to configure other hire fields within ApplicantStack Onboarding to obviously capture and show the information that may be important to you. So as I scroll down, David's record is, or actually needs to be populated. So we need to assign him the tasks and the forms to complete in order for that onboarding process to begin. So as I come over to the gray menu on the right, I can add a form. All forms need to reside in the onboarding library in order to be assigned. So I can assign any of these forms to David. I can add a task and ask David to complete other requirements of the onboarding process. But it's really not efficient to add tasks and add forms individually. So a more efficient process is to add a checklist. And a checklist is the bundling of tasks and forms for a new hire and really other ApplicantStack users to complete during the onboarding process. Checklists also reside in the library. The checklists that I have already created include those that you see on the screen. So you may have a checklist for hourly paid employees. You may have a checklist for salaried employees. In this case, I also have a checklist created for those employees who live in the state of North Carolina, which would include the North Carolina W-4, and a checklist for those that reside in South Carolina, which would include the South Carolina state tax form. So because David lives in North Carolina, I'm going to go ahead and assign the checklist that is associated with North Carolina. And these are the documents and the forms that make up the checklist. So I'm going to ask David to complete the I-9, the federal W-4, the North Carolina tax form, Bever Post Offer information, CC-305 information. I want him to ensure that he has read our handbook, so I'm asking David to complete the acknowledgement form for the handbook. And then, as mentioned, other ApplicantStack users, or I should say ApplicantStack users, can also be assigned tasks during the onboarding process. So in this case, I'm going to ask Carol, who is David's manager, to order David a shirt. I'm also going to ask Carol to provide or to give David a tour of our facilities the first day of employment. So once I submit this checklist, David's onboarding hire record will be populated. So you can now see David has a variety of tasks that he needs to complete, we just reviewed. And Carol has a variety of tasks to complete as well. So please note that Carol's tasks include a pending status for both the I-9 and the W-4 2022. And that's because those are two-part forms. David needs to complete his portion of those forms before Carol can complete the employer portion of those forms. And that's why they are in pending status. Once David completes his portion, Carol will be able to complete hers. So scrolling down in the record, there have been no forms that have been completed yet. We've just assigned David his forms. But now you'll notice there have been assigned supporting documents. And supporting documents are informational documents only. So you can see it might be a welcome video, it could be a holiday schedule for 2022, an employee handbook, a drug-free workplace statement. Again, supporting documents don't require signatures, they don't require dates, they don't require answering any questions. They're informational documents only. ApplicantStack users can add a note, that's a free-form field. And of course, ApplicantStack automatically creates an audit trail of all communication and all activity that is done within the new hire record and with the new hire. So now we're ready to let David know that his onboarding portal is ready for him to access. And in order to do that, I'm on the gray menu on the right, and I'm going to click on Email Hire. Again, I already have a template that's been created and stored in my library. The template is Welcome to the Hiring Process. And you'll notice the template is now populated. The template had merge codes in it. So now the welcome to the onboarding process is personalized for David. But what's really important here is David is then given his username, his password is generated, and he now has the link to click to access his onboarding portal. So once this gets sent, David has the ability to click the link, input his login credentials, and access his onboarding portal. So I'm going to come over here to the gray menu on the right. It says View Portal. So David will see this. A little bit of branding up top. You have the ability to upload your organization's logo. This is a nice welcome message that can be modified to suit your particular needs and what information you want to ask or share with your new hires. David can edit any information that he wants to hear, confirmation of who his manager, Carol Kennedy, some general information about the job for which he's hired, his agreed upon start date, and then here comes those supporting documents. Again, these are documents that are informational only, so David can access any of these documents and review them. Supporting documents are followed by tasks that David needs to complete. Again, these were all in that checklist that I assigned. If I click on I-9 to start that task, this should probably look familiar to all of you being HR professionals. This is the I-9. And what you notice right off the bat is that information is auto-populated. So once ApplicantStack has information, mostly contact information in this case, as you can see, you can auto-populate forms so that your new hires aren't constantly inputting the same information time and time again. It saves them time, and then you also know that if the information is being auto-populated, it's accurate. I can scroll down here. This is what David would experience once he's completed the I-9. We do ask that anything that has a signature, which by definition is a form in ApplicantStack onboarding, we do ask that the new hire in this case check this statement, and it simply says that they agree that they're knowledgeable that this is an electronically signed document. And the reason why I mention this and the reason why it's so important is ApplicantStack onboarding and any form that needs a signature does abide by all e-signature standards and guidelines. So again, that final check is what makes us abide by those guidelines. So there's no other software that's necessary for any e-signature within ApplicantStack onboarding. So I think you'd agree that David's portal, and let me get back in there, is very intuitive. David would continue on with the tasks. Once he has finalized all of his onboarding tasks, you as HR professionals would be aware of that. You can get notifications as tasks are completed, and then do remember that high-level overview of all of your hires and the status of their onboarding. Now, what I've just done is I manually added a checklist. I manually emailed David, letting him know his onboarding portal was ready. But do know that you can automate this process as well. So if I were to move David from the new stage to the next stage, paperwork, I could, if my account were configured that way, trigger that email and trigger the checklist. But I wanted to show you how to do it manually, but do know that you can automate those processes. And with premium texting, which we announced a couple months ago, you can actually trigger texts and emails during the onboarding process at a stage change. All right, moving on from David's record, emails and tasks. I'm moving along the tabs up top are system-wide, so you can use filters to find the email and or tasks that you're looking for. I've referred to the library items multiple times. Let's go ahead and click on the library and talk about some things that we see here. First thing we see are all the form templates in my account. Any form you want to assign to your new hires has to be residing in your library prior. And a form by definition, or at least by ApplicantStack onboarding definition, is something that requires a signature. We do have a library of forms that include the state and federal tax forms. They include the I-9, and we evaluate, actually we're in the process of evaluating them now to see what needs to be updated come January of 2023. But you do have the ability to add your own forms. And I had mentioned this a little bit earlier. Maybe it's a handbook acknowledgement form. It could be a variety of other forms that you might want your new hires to sign and date or actually add additional information to the form itself. So if I click on Add Form, I'm in the gray menu on the right-hand side. You can give the form a name. You would then search for the file, and then once you click on Next, that form will upload and it will reside in your ApplicantStack onboarding library. I did upload a form earlier today, or actually a day or two ago. Here it is. It's my test form. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because once a form is uploaded, if it's a form unique to your organization, you do have editing capabilities. This is an old W-4, but it's a good example of how a form can be edited. And prior to showing you editing, the form that you upload or any form that you do upload into onboarding does need to be in PDF format. So this is an old W-4. Again, you can see there are fillable fields that are already designated, but I want to edit this. So if I come over to Edit Form from the gray menu on the right, you'll notice a couple things here. First of all, here's the name of the form. You can add instructions so that your new hires know how to complete the form. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do support two-part forms. So this form is a form that needs to be filled out or completed by the hire first and then the employer. But you do have forms that can be designated as hire-only forms, employer-only forms, because again, you can assign tasks to other ApplicantStack users during the onboarding process. And then the final option is an employer then hire form. But scrolling down, you'll notice that I now have form types, or field types, I should say, along the left-hand side of my screen. So some of these fields have already been made fillable prior to uploading it, but I need to add an employee signature field here. So I'm going to grab the signature field type, drag and drop. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I like to make it all look pretty. There's my signature field type, and now I need to drag and drop a date type. So this is a date picker. So your new hires will have the ability just to choose let's get it right here, choose a date from the calendar. All right, once I save those changes, they're intact, and you can assign this form to your new hires. Moving on from the blue menu or down the blue menu on the left, we do have a questionnaire functionality in ApplicantStack onboarding, just like we have a questionnaire functionality in ApplicantStack Recruit. And typically questionnaires draw additional information from your candidates. We've talked a bit about messaging. So messaging can be defined by both text messages and email messages. Again, with premium texting, you have the ability to trigger not only email but also text messages on a stage change. But you can see here are my message templates. This is that welcome to the hiring process template that we sent David earlier. And with templates, you can, again, use merge codes so that you can personalize these messages. If you have any tasks or delegation of assignments that you assign time and time again, you might want to create a template. And if you recall, we assigned Carol the task of ordering a shirt and also the tour of the office day one for when David is hired. Checklists. We assigned David the North Carolina checklist. You can see these checklists that I have in my library. Checklists, once again, are comprised of tasks and onboarding forms that need to be completed. And checklists are typically created based on type of hire. In order to create a checklist, and I'm on the gray menu on the right, first option says Create Checklist. It's a drag and drop type of situation. So you would name the checklist, and you have the ability to drag tasks and forms. This is a crazy checklist because this person lives in South Carolina and Alabama, but you get the idea. You have the ability to drag tasks and forms to create checklists that make sense to you and your organization. And again, the goal of a checklist is efficiency, because as opposed to assigning tasks and forms one by one, you assign a checklist, it's efficient, and you know the documents your new hires are receiving are correct. The final option in the library from the blue menu on the left are supporting documents, those informational documents we've talked about. You have the ability to add documents, again, on the gray menu. On the right, first option, add documents. You can choose the files that you want to include as supporting documents, and you can also check this box if those documents default to all hires. And what that simply means is they will automatically populate in your all new hires onboarding portal. The final tab across the top is the Reports tab. So any field defined in ApplicantStack onboarding, you can create a report on. This is a new hire report, and the results of the report once run are simply what you see here. But what's to note here is you can export this report and any other report in both ApplicantStack Recruit and Onboarding to a CSV formatted file like Excel, and then share that information with anybody who needs to know it. Moving back to the Home tab, there is just one more thing I want to share with you prior to opening up this webinar to questions. Again, I'm on my onboarding homepage. From the gray menu on the right, I am going to click on Update Settings. And this is an administrator-only function. You have to be an ApplicantStack administrator in order to access this screen. But it talks about or shows the company name, the company address, API settings are in regard to integrations. Here's the system email signature. But what I want to show you is what's down here. Again, this is that welcome message that a new hire will see once they access their onboarding portal, and you can upload your organization's logo for a bit of branding on that onboarding portal. So if I click on Edit Settings, you have the ability to add this information or modify it if you want to. There are those portal instructions, and you have the ability to upload that logo and place it how you want it in the onboarding portal. All right, that is actually the end of the ApplicantStack onboarding demo. For those of you who don't have ApplicantStack onboarding, you can contact your account manager, and Brandon, Carol, or I can activate a free 15-day trial for you if you want to figure out whether or not ApplicantStack onboarding would make your onboarding process a little bit more efficient, and I can't imagine how it wouldn't. But we'd now like to open up to any questions that you might have on ApplicantStack onboarding, or really any ApplicantStack question that we can answer for you today. We'd be happy to. So I'm going to ask Carol and Brandon to help with any questions that might have already been submitted, and feel free to go ahead and submit questions if you haven't yet. Before we open it up to questions, okay, Brandon, Carol, can you think of anything I should have mentioned that I didn't? We good?
Nothing stands out to me.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Brandon, you said you were going to take the first question, or
the first question? Are the forms electronically completed, or is it forms we're just scanning in? So it can be either. As far as ApplicantStack is concerned, the form that you upload or import is simply an image. And then if you're setting up a new form from scratch, then you're overlaying a text field or a date field or signature field, whatever it might be, on top of that image. So if I'm creating my own form, then I'm going to be aligning those boxes with the lines on the form. And so I hope that answers your question. The form itself, the PDF, can be created any number of ways, or it can be a scan of a scan or a copy of an existing document and then imported.
Excellent. What's next, Brandon?
That's the only question I see right now.
Okay.
We have one additional question that came in from Sandy. Does the onboarding hiring process need to be at the hired stage, or can we start the process when it is a conditional job offer?
So I'll go ahead and take that one. Sandy, the default trigger stage for a candidate to move from recruit to onboarding is the hired stage, but you can ask or submit a technical support ticket, and a technical support team member can make that trigger stage the conditional job offer stage. So the answer to your question is yes, it can be conditional job offer.
Ellen, can I ask a follow-up question to that? Because I was actually talking to Sandy earlier about this.
Sure.
If the trigger stage to move to onboarding is moved up to conditional job offer, what happens to any other stages in recruit that follow conditional job offer? Are they, can you still move the candidate into those, or can you not because the candidate's now been moved to onboarding?
No, you can absolutely still move candidates through the stages of your recruit flow.
Okay.
They're just transitioning to onboarding a bit earlier than that hired stage.
Okay, great.
Yep. So that's all good. What's next?
Yeah, we do have a question from Maria. Can we adjust the time a reminder message is sent so they can complete their paperwork?
Yes. When you create the checklist, you have the ability to specify, if I'm not mistaken, Maria, how frequently that reminder email goes out. Let's go ahead and take a peek. I'm going to go to the library, checklists, new hire checklist, and actually, the better spot to do this is with a hire. So let's go back into David's record, back to add a checklist from the gray menu on the right. Checklist, and here is your email reminder. So you have the ability to specify there how frequently you want that email to go out. So I hope I answered that question.
Okay, we do have a question. Is there a step-by-step guide printout available for this process? It's helpful to have a guide while working on this. I can go ahead and dig that up and put that in the chat box. We do have a getting started guide for Onboard that's going to cover this entire process that we covered today. So I'll go ahead and search for that. Brandon, do you want to maybe take the next question while I work on that?
Yeah,
And I'm going to expand on
not seeing any more
answer.
questions.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to expand on your answer, Carol, if you don't mind. So if you click on the white question mark in the upper right-hand corner and then Help Center, that's our knowledge-based help center with videos and articles spanning all functions of the ApplicantStack. You can see there's an onboarding section here, and this Getting Started guide is a great spot to get started. It'll walk you through onboarding. And these links these topics are a little deceiving. They're actually live links here. So you can click on those topics and read in depth or in more detail about each one of them. The other thing is we do have a guide or a wizard. This is in my demo account. Let's see if we can unhide the wizard. I'm in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see that that wizard is entitled Getting Started. So I am on my ApplicantStack Onboard homepage, and this will also give you a step-by-step instructions as to creating your onboarding account to mirror your particular onboarding needs. All right, I hope I answered that question.
Thank you, Ellen.
There are more questions coming in, Brandon. Are you able to see them?
No, I only see the first question.
Okay, then Carol and I will take over from here.
Well, if you want to read it, sorry. Yeah. If you want to read it, I'll be happy to take a stab at it. But I just can't see it.
This is Carol again. I went ahead and sent the 2 Getting Started guides. We have a video and we have a walkthrough. Those are in the chat for everybody. Okay.
Thanks, Carol.
Amy, are you able to print the completed forms?
That is a yes. So I'm going to go click on the Hires tab, Amy, up top. And let's see my demo account. I'll be able to show you this. Okay. If any forms are completed, you'll see View All Forms here to the right. And when you click on View All Forms, you have the option to print them out as well. Let me see if I can just find somebody in here in my demo account that's got completed forms. I think Carter does. Just scrolling through Carter's onboarding record. Here's a completed form. So if I click on View All Forms here, Amy, if these forms are pretty detailed, it might take a minute, but then you do have the ability to print these forms out using your print capabilities. All right, I hope that question was answered. What's next, Carol?
Thank you, Ellen. I can receive the questions now. Are there plans to make supporting docs an automated feature? I think I might need more clarification on what that question is. If you're talking about files from Microsoft Word in a .doc format, that's not on the roadmap as far as I know. Carol or Ellen, does this question align with anything that you're thinking of? Emily, could you put in a clarification there?
I'm going to read between the lines here, and I'm thinking, Emily, that you're asking, can supporting documents be part of checklists possibly? And that functionality is not available now, but we have had that request many times. I don't know if it's on our roadmap, but we as account managers actually pass those requests to our product development team. So right now, if you do have supporting documents, you can actually specify that they default to all new hires. But if that's not the case, unfortunately, you do need to add those to a new hire record. Again, I'm not quite sure that's your question, but there's a tidbit for you there. And if we didn't answer your question, if you could clarify a bit, that would be great. Next question, Carol, what do you have?
The next question is, can you input an applicant from another platform? That is something that will have to be manually done for now.
Mm-hmm.
So from your Hire tab, you can click on, I believe it's at the very top, New Hire.
Top of the gray menu on the right.
Yep, Ellen is showing that. And then you can manually input hires from another system.
All right.
Okay, the next question, default assigned to all hires. At what point on the stage do the applicants receive them? I'm not sure
Is that in regard to supporting documents, I wonder?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's supporting documents or if that's a form. Oh, default assigned to all hires. I'm thinking that's a supporting document. So that should be pretty automatic. It should go to their portal pretty quickly.
Right, right. So if it is defaulted to all hires, then when I go into the onboarding portal, or when a new hire accesses his onboarding portal, those documents will automatically be populated and be part of the portal.
Okay, the next question, will questionnaires ever allow a signature line? I think that the definition of questionnaire is it's not an official form with a signature. It's really just to collect, gather information. What's your t-shirt size, something of that nature. Ellen, if you would go into questionnaires, there may be an option. Maybe you want to just have a field open. They can type in their name to acknowledge. But I don't know if it's going to be a signature specifically. But questionnaires by nature would just be gathering information. If it's something that requires a signature, we might recommend making that a form.
Absolutely. By definition in onboarding, if it requires a signature, it should be a form.
Okay, the next question, can you edit something in a form without having to re-upload the entire document? So that, if a form has already been completed, I'm going to go ahead and answer this one with yes and no. To a certain point, you can edit something in the form. So let's say it's a two-part form and the hire has completed their information. I believe the hire can go in and edit. But if the employer goes in and changes something, that is going to be locked for editing. So to a certain point, a form should be able to be edited.
And I've just to expand a bit on that as well, Carol, I've just brought up a form. So if it's a form, obviously this is a tax form, but if it's a form unique to your organization that maybe changes every year, a PDF by definition is a picture. So if it's text that you want to manipulate or edit, then you would have to re-upload a more current form or the modified form.
Okay, I see where you're going, Ellen. In case it hasn't been completed by the hire or the employer, if it's just a change to the template.
Exactly. If it's a modification to the text of a form, again, a form is a picture. So there's no editing capability within ApplicantStack onboarding to edit text because, again, a PDF is a picture. So you would have to, again, re-upload the form into ApplicantStack onboarding.
Okay. We took care of that question. Next question, I've posted an entry-level job. I receive overqualified applicants. Is it possible to add overqualified to the list that can be selected when you reject a candidate? So that's going to be back on the recruit side, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a disposition option question.
Correct.
Okay. So I am back in Recruit. This is my Recruit homepage. And this is an administrative option because only administrators can configure the account. and adding disposition options is a system-wide change. I'm going to click on my picture in the upper right-hand corner. And if you are an administrator, you have the option to set up the account. I'm going to click that from the drop-down. I'm navigated to the blue menu on the left, clicking on Configure. And disposition options are considered an application field. So if I click on Application field, here's the disposition application field. Typically, you do want dispositions to be a drop-down field type. You can edit your options here, and you can add options from the gray menu up on the right. You can absolutely delete any options as well. So if I click on Add Options, you could add Overqualified to the field options list here, and once you save it, it will be an option. Carol, you think that was the question?
I believe so. Yes, correct. I'm going to send you into, I believe, Onboard. This could be a question for either. Is there any type of integration with our payroll software, Tyler, Encode/ERP10? The way I'm going to answer that is you are able to create a report and export that and send it to that provider for import if they're willing to do that. So that would go for Recruit or for Onboard.
Yeah, an example of that might be that new hire report. I'm going to flip to onboarding and move to the reports tab here up top. So just as an example, if you do have new hire data that you want to import into your payroll system, again, as Carol mentioned, you can export this to a CSV formatted file like Excel. Let me go ahead and open it up. And you have the ability to, pretty this up and save it as an Excel file. So Excel is CSV formatted, so if your payroll system can import a CSV formatted document, then this information could then be imported into that software.
All right, thank you for that, Ellen. We have 4 questions at the moment and 13 minutes, so we're looking good.
Okay.
We do have a question. I don't have a hires tab or the option to create a checklist for the candidate. And my best guess there is that you may not have either administrator or recruiter access. You may not have any hires assigned to you. It could be a number of different things that might create that. So I'm guessing you may not have the administrator access that would allow you to set up a checklist. Brandon or Ellen, if you can think of anything else.
Yeah, no, I'm just bringing up the hires tab again for the hires table. So it may be that you need to open up some of your filters. Maybe all managers hires might bring up the hires if you don't have any specific hires assigned to you. The other thing is, as Carol said, you may not have administrative access to do some of the things that you might want to do. And if that triggers other questions, please feel free to go ahead and submit a technical support ticket, and the ticket would be answered by our technical support team or routed to your account manager.
Okay, next question we have for the questionnaire, can we set format requirements? For example, if a phone number has to be in a certain format, 3 digits, 4 digits, or if the first 3 have parentheses, is there a way to do that?
We've been asked that question before, and I don't have a definitive answer. Brandon or Carol, please pop in. Yeah. I don't know if that's something our technical support team can do or not. Do you know, Brandon?
All the options that we have are shown when you create a questionnaire. That's called, what they're asking about is called data validation, and that function is available with forms. So if for example, if it's a social security number field on a form, it will require, 9 digits. If it's a phone number, it'll require 10 digits and won't allow any other characters. It'll only allow numbers. And there's a few others I can't spout off at the top of my head, but I don't think we have the data validation capability for the questionnaires. It's just an open field where they can type an answer.
Yep. And you know what, Evely, you made it. That's a question, Evely, that I can get back to you on about data validation in questionnaires. I'll ask a member of our technical support team, and then I'll email you that. Glad you made it, by the way.
Okay. Follow-up question from Evely. Is there a way to automate sending the checklist? For example, the hires in a different state will trigger an automatic check assignment of the checklist specific to them. And in that case, I believe you'd have to have multiple workflows. You can trigger that in your workflow. So when you change your hire to a particular stage, it's going to trigger that. But if there are different checklists, I believe you'll need different workflows to attach the appropriate one.
Correct. And again, just to expand, Carol, on what you said, Evely, I'm not sure if you have multiple workflows in Recruit, but you can have multiple workflows in both Recruit and onboarding. And the reason why you would do that is exactly the question exactly the question you're asking. That was rough to get out. Is the ability to continue to automate, but with different types of hires. So again, with onboarding, you can go ahead and access our help center and read about multiple workflows. And then if you have subsequent questions, either I can help you or somebody from our technical support team. But continuing to expand, in Recruit, the reason why you would have multiple workflows is if you had different hiring stages for different types of candidates. Excuse me, I'm going to modify that. In Recruit, you would have multiple workflows if you had different recruiting flows for different types of hires. So, for example, a high-level hire might have 2 interviews. A low or entry-level individual might have 1 interview. And you can create multiple workflows in Recruit to allow that. Again, that philosophy carries over to onboarding. Gosh, I hope that made sense.
Okay, next question. If I manually enter an applicant into ApplicantStack, to move the applicant to onboarding would be the same process as moving the applicant through the stages, or do we have to manually enter the applicant into onboarding? So I think, Ellen, that goes back to way to the beginning when you change a candidate in Recruit to the hired stage, that is going to move the applicant over into onboarding for you automatically. It moves over basic information, name, contact information, and so forth. And you'll be prompted to select the hiring manager and the workflow that that hire will go through. I hope that answers that question. So that should save you some data entry, the fact that it moves that information over for you. Okay, next question. Can we integrate ApplicantStack to WellSky Calendar when scheduling an interview? Couple of things to mention. We do have the option to see your team's availability with Office 365 and with Gmail or Google. WellSky is not one that I'm familiar with. So when you schedule an interview in Recruit, my best thought is to create, I'm not sure if that's a webinar system or what kind of calendar that is.
I can add to this,
Brandon,
Carol. Yeah, so WellSky has a calendar feature, but it's also called ClearCare, which is a care software that they use at home instead. And I'm not familiar with how WellSky's calendar works, but I do know that Home Instead, all Home Instead accounts have the calendar integration turned off right now, and I'm working on getting that turned back on hopefully in the next release at the end of December. If that gets turned on, then you'll be able to integrate your calendar with either Google Calendar or Office 365. And if WellSky has an Office 365 integration itself, then it will bridge the two together. But again, I can't speak for WellSky. I don't know what's on their end. So in practice, what would happen is you would send out an email inviting the candidate to select a time for an interview, and they would click on the link and select a time on your calendar, and you would instantly get notified, and it would show on your Outlook calendar, and then you're good to go from there. Ladies, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
I do not.
Thank you.
Thank you for hopping in. Okay, last question we have at the moment. Can we manually enter an applicant to onboarding and skip the entering into recruit?
I'll take that one. Yes, you can. There's no requirement for them to be in recruit first. You can simply type them in manually, just as we spoke about earlier on the recruit side, typing in an applicant manually. So as Ellen is showing here, you just add the hire and put in their information.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. We've got about 4 minutes left. I don't see any questions that we have not addressed, but maybe we'll give everyone just another 30 seconds or so. If you'd like to go ahead and, oh, here's one. Is there a way to print off a list of hires? I'm thinking the best way to do that is to maybe create a report. There you go, or export to Excel. So that new hire report that Ellen had showed, you could create a report for that. You could even put a filter on that report if you want to see the last 6 months or the last year of hire data. You could go ahead and run that report. You can export that. That's going to go to CSV. And from there, it's pretty easy to get into Excel. You just save as an Excel file. Okay. Oh, Joe, thank you for the clarification on that. I had not heard that. Okay. We just had a quick clarification on the relationship between the WellSky and ClearCare. So thank you, Joe.
All right.
Okay.
This might be your last opportunity to input any questions that you have. I don't see any more coming in. Just to mention, however, we do have an Ask Me Anything webinar scheduled for, oh my gosh, when's it scheduled for?
15th.
The 15th. You'd think I'd have that embedded in my head. So you have the ability to sign up for the Ask Me Anything. The topic for that webinar will be reports. We are also scheduling webinars into 2023. I can't believe I'm saying that. January of 2023 is right around the corner. So please continue to look in the announcement section for updates on Ask Me Anything sessions as well as recruit and onboarding webinars. Any other questions?
I don't see any, so I think we are done for today, Ellen.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellen and Carol.
All right. Well, to all who are on this webinar, thank you so much for participating. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you on the 15th and into 2023. Bye now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.